I don't want to get sick. Please don't go.
Maria.
What the hell, man? I've been calling you all week.
Worldwide, the continued death toll and rising number of cases.
There's a pandemic.
Open the door, Maria.
Guys, I'll try not to keep you too long then. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's an absolute pleasure, especially after seeing your movie. First things first, today, are you doing well?
We are, yes.
Yeah, we're well.
We're good. You?
Very, very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. How does it feel then to be at this stage that Machination, it's out. It's out there. It's walking on its own two legs and available for people to stream. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, it's always good to have a film release because then it's like it's actually finished and it's out there in the world. So
yeah, look, excited. Like it's an exciting time, and yeah, because we shot the film all the way back in 2020, and it took a long time in post-production. So to finally get it out there, you know, it's relief along with excitement.
Do you find yourself paying quite a lot of attention to not just reviews, but more the general public, the fan reaction, your comments on Facebook and things like that when it comes to the thoughts on the movie?
It's always good when people do enjoy the film, when we get a positive review, but you know, we do know art is subjective. You're not going to be able to please everybody. So we do get bad reviews also, but you got to take the good with the bad. That's the life of an artist.
And I think getting reviews from people you don't know is always more rewarding than getting reviews from people that you do know. Like a lot of people have been clicking on our posts and it's just like, can we get people who are not like associated with us? And it's also always good when you do get those because it's the general public, not people you know.
Yeah, of course, because ultimately people around you might be kinder than say, someone you don't know, or at least you might get a different perspective, because I suppose that's kind of the hope, right? A negative review is a negative review, but if it's what do you say, constructive, as it were, then that's the good,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So no, we're always happy. Like, yeah, we're just grateful when people actually do watch the film. So that's the main thing. Yeah, and like if you like it, excellent. If you don't, well, yeah, we'll try better next time.
I love that. Of course, inspired by the real events of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now I have to ask then, so you said 2022 finished, wrapped up. At what stage did this idea then start to form? And considering what's gone on the last few years, were you kind of conscious of the effects of COVID-19 on the film industry in general when it came to making the movie a reality?
The idea came around 2020 when Malta started to go. We were in Malta at the time, living there in our apartment, which we shot, where the film was shot is actually our apartment. So we were in the middle of, like, no one knew what was happening with COVID. We were shooting a documentary at that time, so early 2020. And then we had the idea midway when it started getting crazy. People were talking about the 5G network, all these conspiracy theories, and we're like, there could be something in this. So we started thinking about a story and what we would want to cast and things like that, because we wanted to make a film after Cats of Malta. So that's how the idea sort of came about. And then working with Steffi, it evolved away from the conspiracy theories and more into a psychological kind of look at a woman dealing with the pandemic. So it kind of went together.
Yeah, and we were conscious of COVID at the time.
Yeah.
There were restrictions in place in Malta, and you could only have a certain number of people in a group. I think the limits was less than 10 people. But as we shot Machination, we actually made sure we kept, to those rules and regulations. It was a really small crew for the most part. It was actually 3 people. on the crew, myself, Sarah, and we had a production assistant / all-rounder. And I think the biggest ever day we had on set was like 8 people, and that was including actors.
And we were aware also that a lot of people were making pandemic films at the time. So I was a little bit concerned. I'm like, is this just going to fall into like the whole heap with all these other pandemic films? So we had to keep that in mind also, because a lot of people were making films online and even shooting through Zoom at the time. So we're like, okay, let's try and like make it a bit different.
No, very good point, actually. It seems to be more now as well in the last year that I'm noticing a bit of a trend for pandemic shot movies.
Yeah.
Or as you said yourself, there are some fairly significant ones that were done over Zoom. But I'll go back to the Malta thing, because I've been to Malta, so it was instantly recognizable. In fact, there's a scene in the movie where at a bus stop, which there's a picture my wife took of me at the time of me lying on that wall because I was feeling quite tired after a long walk. And we were both sitting there going, oh my God, that's the exact place. And was it just because you lived there that you chose Malta as a specific location? Because on an outside perspective from the UK, we don't always know perhaps what's going on in some of the smaller countries regarding COVID-19.
Yeah, it was like Malta was pretty severe in terms of restrictions. And even I think just lately, they've been one of the last countries to actually relax their restrictions. I think you have to be triple vaxxed in Malta to actually travel there. I remember that. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong because we haven't been to Malta.
But they didn't have a lockdown because we're from Australia, like our family's Australian. So we saw what was going on in Australia. We're like, they're going nuts in Australia. There people can't even walk. All they can do is walk around the block. So Malta was a bit more relaxed. Like we didn't actually have a lockdown where people were told, oh, you can't go anywhere. You can't only walk around the block, but they closed like hair salons, all that like stuff that wasn't essential, but everything else was still open. So I just had that restriction of the groups and all that kind of stuff, and work was closing down. So it was slowly happening when we were doing Machination.
And in fact, we were living in Malta at the time is the reason we shot the film. Like it was very difficult to actually travel at that time. So you had to pretty much stay at home, and if you want to create something, it's going to be in your home country. And
Malta's very beautiful too, so we like making films in Malta.
Yeah, there is an element of that into it as well. I wondered, were you conscious of that? Because obviously you're making a psychological horror thriller, drama, however you want to describe it, but you're making that kind of movie, but also with a lot of the shots and the angles and where you're taking them outside, it seemed almost not like touristy, but if you go back to say an old school movie from the 70s and 80s that were filmed on like a Greek island, you'd often get a lot of like long shots to make it look attractive. Was that something you were trying to do?
Probably not consciously.
Well, most of the film is actually set like in the apartment, but we did actually want to like get outside a bit and show off Malta because it's such a unique landscape.
Especially the last shot with the beach.
Exactly. And like even like there's a lot of Hollywood productions that go there, and Malta always stands in for kind of like the Middle East or like some Greek island, as you said. But we actually want to show Malta as Malta, so we're conscious of that. But
the whole thing as well, they're Maltese actors, but they're speaking English, and we did that because we needed the worldwide appeal. Like it would have been, they could have spoken Maltese, but like a lot of Maltese people, the younger ones, they do speak English, and there's a mix. So there was a few words of Maltese thrown in, but mostly English.
Simple thing is go check out Malta if you've never been before. It's a wonderful, wonderful, beautiful country. I want to ask you something bigger now. The effects of COVID-19 on mental health, of course, is probably a somewhat forgotten aspect of the past few years. We talk about the sickness, we talk about the illness, and we talk about the effect it has on the body, not so much the mind. I'm interested to know what kind of research did you guys do to understand the different scenarios that many different people had gone through? So for the one you obviously created for the main character.
We got a psychologist who was advising us. So he talked to us a lot about what Maria could be feeling during the pandemic. So we said to him, if she had OCD, would she be doing this? If she was washing her hands like this, would this be OCD? Would this be schizophrenia? What would this be? So we had a psychologist advising us, but what she was doing with things that we saw in the media and what people were doing, like when they said, wash your hands for like this long, we extended it and made it like a little bit more extreme. And there's just little things like that. Is there anything else you wanted?
Well, mental health is obviously, it's a big issue, and obviously it was kind of brought to the forefront during isolation and lockdown. People almost like had no one to turn to at times, so we were conscious of that. Like kind of media reports, as Sarah said, we did speak to a psychologist, and we developed Maria's character. At first, you know, I don't think it was like schizophrenia that she was suffering from, but as like it progressed and like we were speaking to psychologists and like working one-on-one with Steffi, you know, it just kind of grew and, you know, became like, you know, it was actually undiagnosed schizophrenia that was the main cause of Maria's trauma in the film.
Hallucinations.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think there's always going to be an expectation when a person watches a movie like this and gets drawn in, that they start to not necessarily themselves feel connected or the personal aspect of it, but sort of look outward and think, okay, the people involved in this, maybe they have a lot more personal experience of it, particularly as everybody around the world has had some experience with COVID-19 in some fashion or another.
Yeah, because Steffi is open about it as well. She has suffered with anxiety. I've had anxiety in the past before by things that have happened to me. And so that's personal. And Steffi, I know she drew on that for her character because we had to go deeper into that as well. There was moments where she was saying she was on the floor in the take. She was like, I think I was having a real panic attack. So she was like really like freaking out in some of the parts.
It was pretty intense. And even like as we watch it back now, like we watched it on the big screen in Malta, you know, with the cast and crew and, you know, some members of the public, and we're thinking, oh, Jesus, this is really intense. It's quite a depressing film. We're just watching this woman break down. You know, it's relentless. So, yeah.
Yeah, I got some thoughts on that specific point there. We'll get to the very end, though, as I want to pick your brains on it. But the movie is being described, you know, in press release and stuff as entirely improvised. Now, can you explain what that means in the context of the film and why you chose to do it this way?
We actually work, that's our style. This is like our third improvised feature film now. So we don't write full scripts. We just come up with our outline. Yep. And then we work closely with our actors to kind of go into the past of the character. We reenact scenarios that they had in the past with like your different characters. So we work closely to actually build the character with them and then just kind of put them in the moments when we're actually filming and let them come up with a dialogue and just kind of react naturally to what's happening around them.
You must have been blown away then by the performance of your lead, Steffi.
We're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled. Yeah, she was absolutely brilliant.
We did a lot of work with her, everything from walking to get Maria's walk, from like how she feels about certain things. We had what else did we have? An interview where someone was asking her boss was asking her, people are talking about you at work. Are you okay? Like there was all these like interviews. He pulled her into the office and said to her, people have been saying they hear you talking to yourself. Are you okay? So she got that part from that interview. So we recreate scenes, as Ivan said. We had her have a house inspection. We also had her have a viewing of the apartment beforehand. So we took it for different times. And we also had her with her brother before what happened to her before the trauma and after the trauma to see what the relationship was like. So we work closely with the actors. We don't just let them like go free reign all the time. We obviously direct.
So yeah, it's improvised, but it's like controlled improvisation. So we still have like goals in mind where we want that scene to go, but we let the actors add their own touch to it.
Well, I think it really comes across the involvement of Steffi there, into how the character develops across the film. I watched it with my wife, and my wife's harder to please than I am. But across it, we started to use the terminology of just as every sort of thing fell into place. Oh, like that. One of the things I think the film captures wonderfully is the dichotomy between those who take COVID-19 seriously, those who perhaps take it a bit too far, and those who are far too relaxed and dismissive. Were you aiming to show every side, even as far as having a character with some outlandish views?
Well, originally there was a bigger conspiracy element, and Maria's character had that element to her where she was like caught up in the conspiracies and seeking further into kind of the media fear mongering, but that actually transferred to her brother Jorgen. And actually, as we work with Steffi, that actually aspect got downplayed. We're not conspiracy theorists ourselves. For us, COVID was a major health crisis, but we understand there is multi sides to kind of this pandemic for all people around the world. So we did want to touch on all aspects of it and not really say, no, it was like this and we don't want to hear any other arguments. We did want the film to be open to interpretation and to actually touch all aspects of that whole pandemic debate.
One critic did pick up. They said something about no one else wears a mask in the films. Like they were deliberately saying that COVID doesn't exist. That's not what we were saying at all. But it's just some people, like in Malta, didn't wear masks, and it happens in other countries that we saw as well. People were not wearing masks. Some people didn't believe, or they just didn't want to wear a mask for whatever reason. So her characters around her were not as extreme as she was, obviously. So they didn't wear masks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I kind of keep coming back to in my head is that every person who watches it could take something different away from it, depending upon their personal circumstances over the past few years. For example, myself, I had a lot of sympathy for the having to go to work situation because I carried on working throughout the pandemic and aspects like that. But through that, I ended up becoming a lot more blasé about it until I eventually got sick of it and stuff like that. So that's what I was able to take from it. But it must be quite exciting to sort of think that almost every individual person, depending upon their beliefs or experiences, will take something completely different from it.
Yeah. It's something that we all went through collectively, not as a nation, but as a world. So yeah, everyone had their own experiences with the pandemic, and like you say, everyone can take something different from the film, and that was one of our aims. So we're happy with that.
Another thing that really comes through strongly for me is the sense of isolation. It's all very quiet, and time almost seems to disappear for Maria as the movie goes on, other than a few moments through conversations and stuff that I was able to kind of pick up on how far things have advanced. I'm going to presume that this was on purpose. Were you trying to create a sense of disorientation for the viewer as much as Maria?
We were.
Yeah.
We were as she's suffering from schizophrenia, the whole world is kind of getting twisted for her and skewed. So it's actually, that was deliberate. Even some of the editing choices that we make, where the kind of camera's cutting in and then cutting out, it's deliberately trying to make the viewer kind of experience Maria's world, where it is disorientation
even
and chaos.
The camera tilts and the longer shots.
Yeah, we used a bit of those effects and stuff like that.
Even the costumes, which no one's actually picked up on yet, the color palette sort of changes. Her clothes get darker and darker.
Yeah, so. And other characters wear red to signify danger and stuff like that. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Actually, pick up on that. That's great to know. Now I know it. Of course, without spoiling anything, the movie has a deeper and darker story. COVID-19 is the backdrop to long-term mental health issues and childhood trauma. There's a lot of detail to get into, which is amazing considering the runtime. For you guys, what was some of the more difficult areas you ran into in trying to express all of this while also not? Because one of the things the film doesn't do is beat you over the head with it. It takes its time to explain itself.
It's, for me, it's just trying to find the balance, because we don't want to beat you over the head with the kind of everything that's happening. But then I'm always wondering, am I being too obtuse? Are people actually going to understand all the kind of different elements and kind of the backstory with Maria and her parents and stuff like that? We're not sure if everyone has picked it up with some weird reviews, or we're not sure if people understood exactly what actually happened in the film. But yes, so for me, just trying to actually find that balance. You're kind of second guessing yourself. Oh, should I put this in? Is that going to give it too much away? Is this too early? So the edit was a big challenge for me. So.
Yeah, we moved the dream sequences around a bit to see what would work. Or should she put this here? Does she say this here earlier? Or trying to get the right balance. And
in the end, all you kind of do is trust your own intuition and hope you hope you get it right.
No, I think it's fantastic because some of my favorite films involve open to interpretation thought processes. Ultimately you can think it's something while a movie doesn't have to spell it out specifically. Basically, we don't need a final scene with a load of text saying this is what happened, and that's always quite interesting. But when it comes to Maria's state of mind, was it quite important then for you to at least get that across, that she was descending into schizophrenia and that the trauma was there and it was something that had affected her throughout her entire life?
I think that comes out through the hallucinations that we see, because she's got undiagnosed schizophrenia. I can't even speak. So she's got that, but then she's been keeping the past trauma in, and then the pandemic actually brings it back out. She remembers during the pandemic, because she has all the stuff going on with her parents as well. And then she's actually living by herself now. So I think it all comes out. What was the question again? I've kind of forgotten where I was going with that.
It was just the state of Maria's mind, how clear you wanted that to come across.
We wanted it always to be a point of view from Maria, what Maria was feeling, so that the camera shots are like that. And it was always going to be Maria as the center. She takes up like 95% of the film. So it was always about Maria, and the pandemic was sort of what was causing Maria to act as she was. So, and her trauma to come out. So it was always a focus on Maria.
Okay, cool. Well, here's something that I reached for, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong on this one. A lot of the time, there are other characters that pop in briefly for whatever reason, and they seem to never be able to understand or are willing to listen to Maria. She basically begs them to stay away in a lot of particular scenes. For me, this felt like an analogy for people not listening to those who might be in trouble or paying attention to what's before their eyes. Am I reaching with that one?
No, you're pretty much, you got it. Like that was, you know, what we're going for. We wanted to represent kind of like your other characters represent different point of views, and like your kind of different characters that you meet in the pandemic, from the conspiracy theorist to the dismissive person. So
even her brother's reaction as well, when she says something to him, I can't really say much without giving it away, and his reaction, how he reacts when, oh, she remembers, so then he does something to her. That just throws it even more on a harder angle for Maria. So yeah, there's all different characters in there which show different sort of points of view. And I think it also says that some people don't know how to deal with people with mental illness as well. Like they say, oh, you'll be okay, just rest, you know, take some deep breaths. It's like, I'm having an anxiety attack, I feel like my chest is going to explode, and they're just like, oh, relax, you know, it'll be all right, the pandemic will be over soon. It's like, but it scars you as well. Like anxiety, it's not something you can just forget about. You need therapy. You need to like deal with the issues, even though it might not happen. It might be all right for a moment, and then it could just flare back up again. So I think that point of view as well, where her brother doesn't know how to deal with Maria, her hallucinations, and the way she's reacting to her trauma and to the pandemic.
I still find it incredible. I've already said it, that this is all in about an hour's worth of movie. Did a fair bit end up on the cutting room floor?
No, it didn't actually.
No,
it didn't. Like pretty much everything we shot is almost all in the final edit of the film. We actually went back and done some pickups like afterwards, because we wanted to add like a bit more dream sequences and stuff like that. So no, there wasn't much on the cutting room floor.
It would have been good if it was a bit longer, but it ended up.
But that's the thing. Like we improvised. You kind of when you write a script, they say like it's a minute per page and stuff. We improvise. You kind of don't actually know what the final runtime is going to be. So it's kind of okay. Here it is. It's 1 hour. Ooh, okay. I thought it was going to be a bit longer, but 1 hour it isn't.
And the experience of making this movie and the end result, is this encourage you to kind of carry on in this direction?
It does. Like we love improv filmmaking. We've been doing it for I think 5 years now.
Yeah, we're used to doing it that way. Yeah.
So we just love filmmaking in general. This is what we do for a living. So like every year, like we want to create like another film. Film another documentary and stuff like that. So
I'm laughing because it's getting harder as we get older, because I had to cook, do production design, direct, and also help out with other stuff. And I was like, oh my goodness, we didn't stop. Like, lucky we had a few days off in between, because we were like going to, I don't think I would have got through it if it was 2 weeks.
It was initially the shoot was going to be 2 weeks in a row, but Steffi actually had another shoot that she had to do in the middle of production. So we were forced to take a break, and the break was actually a big relief for us.
Yeah. I think it's getting much harder as we get older to keep doing the improv kind of style, because it's so.
But I love this, so I'm gonna keep going. So. Yeah.
But still an exciting experience nonetheless. Like regardless of whether the age thing is a factor, you're still enjoying yourself thoroughly.
It's really a lot of fun working with the actor to get the character and to try and see what you can pull out from the character, whether it's a walk or a past trauma or something that's going to happen to them.
I've reached a point in my life where I'm turning 40 in a couple of weeks actually, and I just can't do anything else in my life. Like last year, I think it was last year, where I went back to full-time work after freelancing for like quite a while. And I lasted 2 weeks in this like full-time position. I couldn't handle it. I can't work for anybody. Filmmaking is what I have to do. So that's my life at the moment.
I love that. I've got one more for you though, and it kind of goes back to what you said earlier on. I'm not a big fan of ever really using terms like depressing when it comes to describing a movie, because even though you might have a downbeat story and it will affect you in those emotional senses, if you say that to someone, you sell it to someone, it's almost off-putting. Oh yeah, this is a depressing movie and stuff like that. So if I was asked to sum up this movie in 3 words, I'd probably go bleak but real. There's the 3 words I kept coming up to my wife last night. Bleak, what but real.
I like that. We're going to take that.
Or relatable. Or
We're going
like
to take that
yeah.
and quote you.
What would you use if you could sum up Machination with 3 words?
No, what would you call it?
Um,
Relatable.
Didn't we have like a PR, like little blurb or something
What did you call it?
about
you wrote
this?
That. You wrote that thing.
For the front cover.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
A relentless, look into the life of a broken woman, something like that.
That's something Steffi wrote.
Is it?
I think so.
That's awesome.
We'll use that too.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important, is that ultimately it deals with real subjects, and that
It's relatable for sure.
Yes, it really, really is. And no better time in the world than to have that kind of relatability. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for watching. You can check us out on gbhbl.com, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and Tumblr. Go to Patreon to help us out over there. That's patreon.com/gbhbl, as well as Big Cartel, where you can find some of our merchandise. We have a podcast running on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. And of course, if you like this video, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button and help the channel grow. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?